Hey guys and ladies, how's it going? Let me know who is here. I'm just kind of warming up. I brought my Les Paul out to play, and I just felt kind of weird about playing it. Kind of made a last minute switch. I feel weird about playing my Telecaster. So I figured we'd talk a little. Hey Bruce. Actually, let me swap here. I thought we'd talk a little bit about rhythm guitar. We've been doing a lot of blues lately, and people seem to enjoy it. So I figure, hey, let's keep doing that, but let's talk about the rhythm stuff, because that's what you do 95% of the time on any blues gig. But I am open to answering questions and all kinds of other stuff. If you have other stuff, like if you want to talk about other things. Can you hear everything? Okay. Hey, Dave. I'm not sure. I put strings on this morning, so this may be not so great. So we'll see. Actually, this actually doesn't sound too bad today. I've got my deluxe down here too. I kind of fired this thing up, but the problem is it's kind of loud. So let me see what you guys think of this. It might actually, in order to get a decent sound, it might be a bit much. It's warming up. It was holding up the Christmas tree back there, and then I realized that this is a perfectly workable amp, and then I have one that's actually in need of service. So I put the 1974, whatever that is, back there to hold up the Christmas tree, and I can play through the 1970. See, problem is, like, there's a spot. I'll give it a try. Let me know if it sounds obnoxious. It's funny because it's like almost half the wattage of the Sur, but because there's no master volume, it can be a little bit obnoxious. So I was thinking, I've got this 12 and 8 bar blues deal here. I thought maybe we'd talk a little bit about rhythm parts. All right, and the cool thing about these rhythm parts here is that they give you ideas that work in all kinds of music. You're really dealing with concepts that are pretty universal to everything that you're going to do with the guitar. And this is out of my book, Expanded Blues Guitar. I'll put a link to that on Amazon. Actually, I'm going to do that thing. Hey, also, guys, let me know if you guys see anything different about how this looks during the stream, or if any features come up. Let me know about that too. I just kind of hit the threshold where it's monetized, which means that if there's advertisements happening during the stream, let me know. I won't really be able to see that kind of stuff. But I would like to know if it's annoying, or if there's things that I can shut off and make your experience better while still being able to make a living here. Because sometimes this stuff is just a little bit too much. Okay, so this is the book that all of this comes out of. So I'll put the link here, and then I'll also drop it. Being able to. Ooh, okay. Turn that off. Apparently, I am watching myself. I'll stick this in here. Okay, so the thing with that book is that it came out about the same time as my last album, and the idea was it's a full transcription of the album, solos and rhythm parts, both mine and guests that played, Tom Harkenrider, Scott Francisco, And then there's also all of this lesson stuff. I usually take the lesson stuff out of the book and use it in my video lesson. So this is a big part of it right here. And that's actually what we're going to be dealing with. So if I come back here, I wonder if I can do this without the cropping. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to assume, and this is there for you guys to download. There's a link underneath this video already. And in that link, that PDF, it'll take you to the website. You just download it. It's a free download. But it's got all of this stuff in it. The chord voicings we're going to talk about. Chord progressions. I'm going to kind of skip over a lot of this stuff here. I'm going to assume that you guys know what 1, 4, 5 chord progressions are. If you don't, or you need some explanation, please feel free to ask me to explain it. But for the purposes of playing a straight ahead blues, I'm going to assume that you guys know that. We talk about shuffled eighth notes, dominant chords. This is about the 12-bar blues chord progression, when the chords go where. We've talked about this stuff a lot in the past. All right. So the first place that I'm going to start is we're going to start with basically the Jimmy Reed shuffle kind of playing, right? And the deal with this is that a lot of this stuff's in open position. And I like the idea of starting in open position because we spent a lot of time in the last couple live streams playing solo and ideas like that in the open position. All right, so we're going to start off just blues and E. What's on the page is blues and A, but it's kind of the same idea. Your open string is the root. Wonder if I can back up so you can see a little bit better here. All right, and you guys have heard this a million times. We're just playing eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now there's a couple ways of playing this because the third finger happens out here. This is the root and the 5 of the chord. All right, and then this ends up being the 6th of the chord. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I generally like to play it where you're playing that 6th on both eighth notes of the beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And guitar's not distorting, is it? Or overloading the mic? I have this feeling that it's getting a little crunchy. I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. All right. And this is kind of the core of a lot of these kinds of rhythm playing. This is what we call a bottom part. A lot of times when you're playing in a blues setting, we can't have everybody playing the same thing, right? All right. And some of what we're going to talk about today is like, hey, if there's somebody playing the bottom part, maybe there's something we can do. You know, there's all kinds of stuff we can do on top of that that's in a higher octave, right? These concepts are pretty true no matter what style you play, and I end up using these ideas. And we've talked about this in rock contexts before. But, you know, if I go to a blues jam, so much of the time I'm hearing people just play on top of each other, and what we call the bottom part is the lower part. And what I do want to hear is, you know, there's always something you can do in the higher register too. And that also gets out of the way rhythmically of the other players. So, all right. So in E, we got root with the 5 is like a power chord, and then the 6th. All right. If I was to do it in a closed position, all right. So here's a G power chord, and I'm reaching out there with the pinky for the 6th. That's the same thing as that. It's just we have the open string to work with. Now in the open position in E, it's really easy to play the 6th and then go up to the minor 7 and then back to the 6th. And that's a pretty common like Jimmy Reed kind of deal. You can do this over the 1 chord, and then the 4 chord, the A chord, is the same thing down a string. Then over the 5 chord, I generally play it traditionally like that, right? Which is the full thing that I just showed you on the G, where you're playing the power chord. Right? Sometimes, and I don't know if this is I don't think it's a Jimmy Reed. It might be like a Lonnie Johnson thing or something like that, where they'll just take this and they'll just move that part of it up, and you still have the A in the bass, because the bass player is playing the B, the root of it. Right, and then you've got the turnaround. All right, so you can either go like the full deal with the full stretch, or you can do what some of these guys do because they don't want to stretch their hand and then move down for the 4 chord. Okay, so I'm going to pause just for a second, get a little feedback. Are you guys cool? Volumes, can you see everything? Can you hear everything? These are all in A. Okay, so the backing track I was playing over before, actually, I can actually share this with you guys, and you'll see kind of me playing both the top and the bottom parts. Let's see how well this goes. So this backing track. Okay, actually, so let me there we go. Okay, we're gonna watch a little movie here. It's like when the teacher, the substitute teacher, does this. Hopefully, you can hear this okay. One of the things that just happened there was I made an introduction out of the last 4 bars of the form. All right, so as the chords went by, it's the 5 chord, it's like the 9th bar of the form, the 4 chord, and then E, and then turn on. Now we're at the top of the form. It's E. The Telecaster's playing the bottom part, and you see the black guitar, the King Hat's playing the top. And you see I'm staying out of the way of the other guitar. That sort of thing just kind of repeats. All right. So the idea here is that, you know, when you're playing rhythm guitar in a 2 guitar setting and it's that kind of blues, you don't want to both be playing the same thing because it's going to sound kind of small and kind of sloppy. It's really hard to play that stuff tight. You know, so having this part on the bottom, what I should do is, like, you know, if I'm playing on a guitar like this, I'll roll the volume back. And what's happening with the volume being rolled back is that it thins it out. If I got the volume up, see how like thick and muddy that is? That texture, it's too much. You know, we really can't get that to fit in the context of the full band. We roll it back, you hear everything, but it's like skinny enough to fit with the other elements in the track. And the other guitar, playing these 7th chords, we'll talk about this stuff. But the top part is definitely in another octave. Even when I'm playing the same rhythm, those parts really come, for me, it comes out of Little Walter music. Like if you were to learn Shake Dancer, or any of the Little Walter stuff. Little Walter was a singer, harmonica player, and he had these recordings where it was usually two guitar players, either the Myers brothers or Robert Lockwood Jr. And I forgot who the other guy was. But these two guitar groups would make this really cool sounds where there was just a lot of stuff going on, but they didn't get in each other's way, and they didn't get in the way of the harmonica, which was the most important part. Do you guys hear the amp? It's like making funky noises. I'm gonna have to switch amps back. Yeah, it's still going. All right, tell you what, just for the sake of everyone's sanity, including my own, I'll switch back to the Sir. Sir's at least quieter. Okay, sorry about that. But there's so much to learn. Like if you learn all of the parts off of those, and honestly, the section in my book where I talk about top and bottom parts for the shuffles, it's literally just, I think it's just Shake Dancer. Like I stole as many parts as I could out of that, because that's just an encyclopedia. My friend Tom Harkenreiter taught me that if you learn that, that's like 90% of what you need to do in order to back up a harmonica player. Now, I don't play very many harmonica gigs, and honestly, there's the running joke about me is I hate harmonica players, which isn't true. I just hate bad harmonica players. But no, I mean, they're fun gigs, but it's just not something I normally get to do very often. Usually I play in trios. But I'll still use all of these ideas both as rhythm parts and as bits and pieces for soloing, right? So we talked about the bottom part for the shuffle. People do it like this. Can you guys see this okay like this? Alright, so that's the beginning part. Alright, and then on top of that, the first one I did was, it's almost like when Hendrix plays Purple Haze, or Red House, and he's got this E7 chord right here. All right, and this E7 chord, it's just like D7. The open position one, just up 2 frets. All right, so you've got 4th fret on the 3rd string, 3rd fret on the 2nd string, and then 4th fret on the 1st string. It's that shape, and he's just playing triplets: 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, like that. The second measure of it, he'll go down a fret, and then back up. All right, and then this ends up being kind of the next part of it, which is where you're basically going up. It's still E. There's the 5 in the root of E. It's almost like a little power chord, like. And then this note is the 7th of the chord. You can play an E7 like that. You know, you can also play it like that. But that's basically the top 3 notes of that E7 chord. So you could do that, you know, or I did this a little bit last week too, where we're taking that 7 shape, moving it back down a half step, which makes it like an E diminished. And you can do the Stevie Ray Vaughan and just kind of smear it. You bend it up. All right. So if I was to play over this. There we go. And then down a half step. Up. And then in this part, this is one of my favorite things to do, where I'm trying to play something that's in the same rhythm as the bottom part, but I don't want to be in the same octave. Right, so I'm basically playing an A major chord here. If I can do this where it's not so washed out. Got Les Paul disease going on. So I'm playing A, C sharp, and E right here, which is the 7th fret, 6th fret, and 5th fret. Use the tuner. All right, and then where the bottom part would go on the 6th, we're basically just collapsing that 3rd finger, barring it, and it's like a D chord actually. It's very much like an organ. It's very much that kind of movement, but it works over this. All right, and you can do it in E. B. A. Okay. All right. Any questions you guys have yet so far? All right. So for top parts, we've got the idea where you can play just the dominant 7th chord shape, and you can either make it a diminished chord you can bend, or you can move it up here, or it's kind of a really open sounding dominant 7 chord up there. It's still an E. It's like an inversion but minus 1 note. If you wanted to, you could always take it from here and go like that, and you're kind of playing an A chord. It's the 3rd, the 5th, and then the 9th. It would fit. It just sounds kind of weird. I'm not a big fan of that one, but it works. All right. Other things that you can do besides those, and if we're playing an E, so over the E right here, if we're playing an E9 chord, right, you can actually take the top part of the E9 chord. So I don't have it up here. It's actually on. Let's split our screen real quick. Nice thing is, I have this handy here. So it's this chord right there. All right, so I'm playing at the 7th fret. Right, this note right here is the E. There's gotta be a better way to be doing this. And instead of playing the whole thing and moving it up, you're only just moving the first 3 strings up. Stevie Ray Vaughan tune was that Close to You, I think, where he's playing that. Now I'll move, it looks like I'm moving the whole chord shape. I'm just kind of touching the strings to keep them from ringing. That's just me muting it. Alright. And if I wanted to do an A, I could come up here. So we're at the 12th fret. Alright. The open position doesn't sound as cool because you're not sliding. All right, but even like the B right here, you've got that option as well. Other places you can get away with this sort of thing, like for the A, instead of trying to play it in the open position, you've got it right here. So I don't know if you guys have seen this kind of 9th chord. But what this chord is basically, it's an A9, but you're not playing the root. That's what the X is on the diagram there. The first finger is the 3rd of the chord. Your 4th finger is the minor 7. 2nd finger is the 9th, and your pinky goes on the 5th. Very useful chord. And if you're playing with the bass player and he's like walking a bass line, all right, what's happening there is that he's playing enough of the root that we don't need you to play it. We can get away without it. All right. So, once again, you don't want to move the whole thing, but if you slide up those first 3 notes of it, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th string, you're basically getting the Stormy Monday. They call it Stormy Monday. Tuesday's just as bad. All right. in this it's gotta be. Oh, look at that. Someday I'll learn how to actually do my cameras. Right. So the idea, you know, if I was going on the E9, I could play the A9 here and just play those top 3 notes. And that works pretty good there. And then if I wanted to do it in B, it's up here. All of that right there to play around with. Now, I wouldn't play all of that all the time on something like that, but it gives you something to mess with, even if you're just going for that's, you know, it's another way of navigating. All of these things, they're basically just bits and pieces of chords that work really nice in a way that is almost horn-like. So I'm going to pause for a second, let you guys ask questions, if you have questions. Let me check something here. Oh, there's literally ads everywhere. Oh, there's custom emojis. So I can actually, I think that was Chinese food, takeout. It doesn't show up in my my thing very well. Huh. Interesting. Well, that's the part where you can do super chats and such. All right, cool. All right, so no questions? Groovy. So that right there is a lot of playing in E. I really like things like where I can play these sixths. Whoops. All right, so if I'm playing over the 5 chord, all right, I can play, that's the 3rd in the root of the 5 chord, like the E bar chord right there. And I can just walk down into the 4 chord. All right, and then those guys are both on the 4th fret because that's part of that E7 chord. That's on the 2nd fret. Alright, that's almost, I think the little Walter tune, or one of them has a, you know, that sort of deal. So you can trace out bits and pieces of the chords like that. The best thing to do is to listen to these tunes. One of the, like Jimmy Reed, he'll do this thing that you kind of hear on Stevie Ray Vaughan tunes where you're in 1 and 2 and 3. Oh, good example. Alright, on Pride and Joy, he does the thing where he's walking the bass line, but he's also hitting the up strums. And there's a lot of Jimmy Reed tunes where one guitar player or 2 guitar players, I think he had 3 guitar players and no bass player, we play on a bottom and then one person who's going, right? So you can do that through something like this. If I was to bring this, let's let it kind of pass through. I'm hoping you guys can hear this. So one other option is really easy, just play the up strum. 2, 3, 4, 1. turnarounds in E. The cool thing about this is that really you can do this if someone's playing one turnaround, like they're playing the stock, which, let's bring this guy back. We have a whole section of turnarounds here. All right, so that first one, I've actually got, these are written in the key of A. So starting on the 9th fret. All right, in the key of E, you'd actually start on the 4th fret. So you're playing a 6, notes on the 1st and 3rd strings, sliding down chromatically, and ending on the open and the 1st fret. All right, somebody could play that. Somebody could do, which I don't have that one written here. Oh, I don't have that one written in here. Oh, it's basically here. But it's in A, so it's off by a string. You just lower it a string. Alright, that's the same thing in E. Right, so you can have one person playing that one, and you can have somebody playing this guy. Alright, you could something like that. Now that one's an easy turnaround to do in E. It's like playing an E7 where you've got notes on the 5th string 2nd fret and 3rd string 1st fret. You just move it all the way up to the 5th and 4th frets, and that moving down part settles in like that, and you can put it against either the open 1st string, I'm kind of hybrid picking here, or I like playing it with the note fretted on the 2nd string on the 5th fret, because then I can move this another key. You play all the notes together, or you can, or combine them. All of those turnarounds can just be played on top of each other, as well as, sometimes you've got these licks where it's like this guy here at the bottom. Let's see. Anything like that, where it ends on the 5 chord, right? It starts on beat 2 of the next to last measure, 1, 2 trip. Right, there's basically a format, and it has to do with the fact that you're playing triplets and then ending on the 5 chord. And ending on the 5 chord means that you're going to turn around back to the top or the beginning of the tune. If you're to play any of those and end on the 1 chord, then you're just literally ending the tune. It's kind of coming to rest right there. Does that make sense? So if I was to do that one in E, I don't like that one for that. Or you can play the E up there. So the packet's got just a ton of this stuff. We can take this idea, move it up an octave, right? So I've got the E on the 12th fret. That's going to take the place of the E on the 5th fret on the 2nd string. All right, and I'm basically just moving the notes on the 2nd and 4th string down. If I wanted to, I could walk up in there into the 5. That's the beat. 1. I also like this idea of what we call contrary motion. And what's happening there is that that note stays the same, but the notes on the 2nd and 4th string kind of move away from each other, right? So I've got B, and then A sharp, B. All right, and then this one goes just down chromatically. 1. And then walks back up into the top there. All right, that's one way of doing that. The whole ZZ top. Yeah, actually do it in A. So it's building off that same idea. You've got your root on the first string. And all you're doing is you're just moving that out on the 4th string from the same fret. That one goes down chromatically. Okay, a little pause if you guys have questions or anything like that. I've got other stuff. I might just go until 6:30 and just kind of talk about the open E, A, that kind of stuff, and then talk about box shuffles and stuff like that maybe on Saturday. One of the questions I've got for you folks is that is there anything that you want me to cover, and is there anything that I talk about that I'm tired of hearing about? I'm trying to kind of work this so that it's worthwhile for you guys to show up as much as possible. So if I'm repeating myself, or I'm just covering things that are of no interest, please let me know. So I'm going to play a little bit in A for a minute. And I'm going to kind of combine some of these parts. Oops. Let's see if I can mix and match with a jump blues too. Had kind of a brain fade today. So in the A thing here, with the different feel, I can't really get away with this kind of thing. And that's one of the things that you kind of want to be aware of, is that rhythm part. It gets old after a while. All right, I would totally stay away from that, but I would play. So on a jump blues like this, where it's kind of swinging a little bit more up tempo, I might play 6 chords. Let's bring you back here. Chord. And look at that. I don't have one in here. Oh, you know what? Actually, well, I'm not giving you guys vertigo doing this. Or is it literally not? Oops. That's funny. All right, the chord voicing is not where I thought it would be. It's in another part of the turnarounds. It's been a long time. And I could have sworn it was here, but apparently it's not. Okay. So the 6 chord voicing. All right. If I'm playing an A, it's basically an A major chord. Root, 3rd, 5th. But instead of the 5th, I'm playing the 6th with the pinky. And my first finger is on the root. And it makes great for these kinds of rhythm things. Right. if we think about, if we're playing an A and we want that slide, like the T-Bone Walker thing, that's the top part of the slide. And one of the cool things you can do with that slide, right, is you can slide up, pop that root on the first string that we weren't playing before, and then coming back down. Right, that's there. But for the jump blues thing, I just kind of like to play that. And then here's D9, just like the E9 we did before. Here's the E9. There's no 4 chord in this one. Okay, so Bruce asks, how does jump blues differ from straight blues or shuffle blues? So the thing with jump blues is typically it's swing based on some level. Early B.B. King, T-Bone Walker. When I talk about shuffle blues, it's funny because blues styles are really regional. A lot of the things that somebody might call a style in one place would not make any sense to you someplace else. Like when I talk to Tom Harkenrider, or when he teaches this kind of thing, he calls it a lump. All right, and a lot of guys will call it lump, 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 right? Some people will call it a grinder. I like to just call it a Jimmy Reed because it just references a kind of music that most people will immediately go, oh, I get that. All right, but that shuffle, it's got a little bit of a rural thing to it, but there's still a band, but there's no bass player. There's a lot of guitar players. The jump blues thing, jump blues originally came out of big bands after World War II needing to have smaller groups because they couldn't afford to pay everybody, like Louis Jordan, people like that. And because they were jazz groups, they tended to play more swing feels. All right. And there's a big West Coast jump blues kind of scene here, even to today, like Junior Watson and what do you call it? Like Herb Fletcher was one, and plays with Mavis Staples, and and Rod Piazza, and a lot of guys like that. But typically, it's kind of a swingy thing. Sometimes, like this jump blues pattern, I'm not going to the 4 chord. I'm just staying on the 5 for 2 bars. A lot of times, I'll do a 2/5 like a jazz. All right, so I'm playing A. There's 1 chord. And then the 4 chord. 1. And then 2. 5. 1. Alright, and a lot of times the rhythm is more like that, almost like piano comping. Alright, and that stays out of the way of everything. If you're going over the top of someone going ba-doo doo 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 and walking the bass line, then it's really a mess. It's not that great of a deal. So does that make sense? Does that help? It's funny because to me there are so many different kinds of blues. A lot of times when people don't know a lot about blues, they say, oh, it all kinds of sounds the same. And there are elements of it that do make it sound the same. Chord progressions typically end up being the 12-bar blues, 1-4-5 kind of thing. You've got a lot of different feels you can play. There are variations on those chord progressions. You have 8-bar blues. You have minor kinds of blues. A lot of artists have different ways they like to manipulate those kinds of blues. But it takes listening and kind of understanding what you're listening to, like most other styles of music. Most people write off blues as being boring because they think it's, Johnny B. Good, essentially. Like that sort of deal. And that ends up becoming a problem, like when you go to a blues jam, and that's what people want to play, is that sort of deal. It's not very fun. So, that's part of it. I like the, like B.B. King Live at the Regal. A lot of that stuff, I think, qualifies as jump blues. I like his version of Every Day. I got the blues with like the flat tire kind of feel. That's pretty cool. Like that kind of deal. All right, I forgot what I was talking about. So I kind of wanted to cover like top and bottom parts for this sort of deal. Now we have box shuffles, right? And you know, if you know tore down, well, I'm tore down. Almost level with like that kind of feel. Well, tore down. Right, and that's called a box feel because like the notes kind of look like they're in a box right here, right? That's a reverse box where it goes root, then octave, minor 7, and then 5. Let me switch cameras here so you can. All right, so that pattern, if I'm on C, and I still play with the same shuffle feel, I kind of like a forward box, which is basically doing it in reverse after you play the first note. Root, 5, 6, root. Like Sonny Boy Williamson. Checking up on my baby, picking up what she's putting down. I'm checking up on my baby, picking up what she's putting down. So same chord progression. So many nights and days, and this has definitely got a shuffle feel to it. And if you want to replace it with a backwards or reverse box shuffle, you can do that. But you know, you want to make sure the bass player knows that too. Okay. So those are the two kinds of box shuffles. If you do a feel that's a little bit more straight, that's kind of what we call a boogaloo. Actually, all those feels are in my book. I just realized they're not actually. Let me verify. I'm kind of going through the. Yeah, I don't have those in the handout. Right. So the boogaloo, like if I'm playing in C, it's root, 5, minor 7, 5, minor 7, root. So, like messing with a kid. What's this I hear? There's a whole lot of talk. People say you're trying to quit the kid. Hey, yeah. Tell me what you did. You can call it what you want. I call it messing with the kid. Now, I like doing, I'm moving this into A. So there's two things you can do. When you play the 7, you can play it as 16th notes. You go 1, 2, and 3. So I'm playing that note twice as 16th notes. Tell you about my baby, speak of her with pride. She goes all the way just to make me satisfied now. She's my baby. Alright, the other thing I like to do is on beat 2, maybe I'll put like an A7 chord here. Alright, and let's give you the chord that I like to use, which I really feel like I should share with you. Is here somewhere. Wow, trip out. It's not completely here. All right, so actually I could write on this. So I put a root here, and that note, and then that note. All right. In those three, that's the root, the third, and the minor 7 of the chord. So I'm going root, root, chord, and the rest of the boogaloo stays the same. Tell you about my baby, speak of her with pride. She goes all the way, so make me satisfied now. Same thing on D9. Oops, D9. Back to the A. 5 chord at the end, right? So that's a boogaloo, and it's like a box shuffle pattern, except for the rhythm is straight. 1, 2, and 3. It's not boot do 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 do. All right, you got to make sure that you're fitting with the drums. The last of the single note patterns I think we'll talk about. It's a Latin or a blues mambo. All right. What's the Crosscut Saw by Albert King is a good one. I'm going to keep it in A though here. So you're playing the root on the 5th fret on the 6th string. Slide up into the 4th fret on the 5th string. There's your 5th, which is on the 7th fret. There's your 6th. Remember when we're going like that? Root, 3, 5, 6. That's on the 4th string in the back there. I'm your crosscut saw. Come drag me across your lawn. I love playing this song. I hate singing it. I'm your crosscuts. So move the pattern down 1 string to the 4 chord and then back to the A. 5 chord, 4 chord, back to 1. Or you could do it where you slide up to the 3rd and there's 5, 6, 5 right there. So it's like going, say, same thing. And a lot of times that just kind of depends on how you feel like you want to play it, and if there's a sound that you're going for. It really depends. If I'm singing it, a lot of times I'll just play it down there because then I don't have to look at my hands. It's very easy for me to play. Yeah. Now, most of these feels, when they're the single note things, you can play something like that where you're just basically playing a chord. There's an A9, here's that A7. You just play that rhythm 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, 1, 2. And then you can play a D9. And I usually play the top 3 or 4 strings. Partially because that keeps it out of the way of the box. So that's, that works for the box shuffle. If I'm doing making sure I'm keeping the 8th note feel. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3. Notice that this stuff is repetitive and I leave a lot of space. And I also don't play really big chords, which get in the way of other guitar parts or other instruments. You always want to be really aware of where your space is and where everybody else's space is, and make sure that you don't step on them. Right? And that's one of the things that by playing these simple, repetitive parts that are tight like that, you'll actually be able to be heard playing a part that won't step on anyone else's parts. A lot of times, like if you do these backbeat things, 3, 1, 2, they'll match maybe the snare drum, but it really depends. It has to interact with whatever the bottom part is, right? And these are the top parts for those single note riffs. Even like So, the idea is always listen to the music you're trying to play. And if you do that, and you've got the basic tools that I've got for you here, especially in the PDF, which goes with this, which is linked under the video, or will be linked under the video once the live stream is done, you're going to find that this stuff is kind of easy to put together. right? You just want to be aware of where your little part. It's almost like playing reggae music or funk, you know. The most important things are that you know where your spot is and you don't step on other people's spots. Okay? And when you're playing in a like a blues jam or a pickup setting, you always listen to the other player if there's a second guitar player and play whatever he's not playing. Make yourself useful. If you end up playing the same thing as the other player, what's the point of having you on stage, right? So I'm gonna post links to some albums that I think are really good for you to listen to that actually demonstrate these things. You'll be able to hear them. There's some Best of Jimmy Reed, some Little Walter, even like my brain is fried. It's only Wednesday today, huh? Shoot, I can't remember the name of it. But even like the Albert King stuff where he's playing with Booker T and the MGs, it's always really tasty guitar because it's always just in the right place. And that's kind of the thing, is you have to stake out your territory and stick to it. And then you're useful. I've got a student, Terry, who I don't think is here on the live stream tonight. And Terry plays in a lot of pickup blues gig situations in Ohio. And even though he's not really been playing the style of music very long, he gets asked back, and it seems like people like to call him for those gigs because he understands this very concept. You know, he understands that, you know, he can stake out, you know, the triads or those chords, those seventh chords, and play the backbeats or play the top parts, and let the other guy do exactly what they want to do. And instead of stepping all over and creating a mess out of the mix, he's actually giving us a fuller sound because he's playing stuff that rhythmically is interesting but isn't the same as the bottom parts. Also generally tends to flesh out the harmony a little bit more. You know, so it's food for thought. If you can play these top parts, if you get good at this stuff, you know, it's easier to find gigs. It's easier to make sense. You know, and I do a lot of this stuff even if I'm playing as a single guitar player, because sometimes it's just cool to do that. You know, sometimes it just sounds good because the bass player, like if you're doing a lot of single note stuff, like say you're playing like that sort of deal, probably the bass player is going to play something like that. All right, so I would rather kind of do the other part. If I'm doing that song solo, life is good, ain't got no sorrow or no pain. Life is good, ain't got no envy, grief, or hate. It took me all my years of living to learn to let my troubles fade. So I'll play that because I'm the only instrument there. But if there's someone else playing, I'll usually get away from that part. Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions. I feel like I'm kind of shouting into the void today. Hey, Michael, thank you for the kind words. Is there anything I can do for you? Anything you're interested in that we can discuss? Maybe I'll put I should make a list of recordings that I think you guys should listen to. I'm gonna put a link to the forum. I'm gonna do this in the theory section here. Oops. And I'm gonna post the link for you guys. And it's just gonna be stuff to listen to. Oops. Okay, I'm gonna post the link here, and then later on today I will I'll post YouTube videos of other people playing the stuff that I'm talking about, some of the stuff that I'm referencing. All right, so go ahead and bookmark this. And if you want to join the forum and comment or ask questions, feel free. It is a free forum. We'll kind of go from there. All right. That's kind of the short tour through top and bottom parts for various feels. What I'll do is I'll try and find examples of each of these feels and post the links to them. And then I'll post bits of my last album where I play feels that are not so standard, but they're essentially these things. A big part of that album was me deciding that I wanted to make a blues album, but I really was not born in the 50s or, you know, recorded in the 50s, so I wanted to do things a little bit differently. So a lot of the feels on my album are kind of twisted a little bit, and they're not inauthentic, but they're a little different and non-standard. Like that Life is Good that I just played. I'll post that one in there, and you guys will hear it's very different. The bass player plays some really neat stuff, and I just play a ton of tremolo guitar. But the idea here is that, you know, you want to have a really full palette of tools that you can use, so that when you go sit in and play with people, you can recognize what the rhythmic backing is, whatever the rhythm section's doing, and you're going to have a bunch of tools or things that you can do to play in there and make sense and fit. And that's part of the key with this stuff is just having the tools to actually get along and do your job without stepping all over everything. So, alrighty, folks. I'll probably let you guys roll. I'll be back on Saturday morning. Saturday morning, I was kind of thinking about talking about fretboard stuff. I've got some students that really want some help with the cage system and the fretboard layout, and what I was thinking was we could talk about some of those things in the cage system complete lesson, but then give you practical examples of how to use them. Do this in such a way where it's immediately useful to you. So we may shift gears. Give me input. You know, if there's anything that you guys want or don't want to hear, let me know. But that's probably what I'm going to do. I'll probably not do blues for a little bit, but actually spend some time talking about fretboard layout and some basic theory. So, okay, everybody, thanks a lot. I had a good time, and I will see you all on Saturday.